Hello. Episode 4.
Crazy, huh?
Right. It's going so fast. Episode 4 of Faith Over Fear, Overcoming Addiction. And this is our story.
How you doing?
Uh, I don't even know what to do with that.
It's crazy though. When I knew this was episode 4, um, but like, wow, it's been a month. I don't even know where it went.
I know, right? Um, all right. Well, let's just jump into it. Do you want to start us off in prayer?
Sure. Dear Heavenly Gracious Father, we thank you for all of the continued blessings that you bring our way. We ask that you watch over this episode, watch over our hearts, watch over our house and our marriage. And we are thankful for the joy that you give us every single day. In your precious and perfect Son's name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. And I'll just add, Heavenly Father, that I hope we reach somebody, anybody, even if it's just one person that we're able to help tonight. We would appreciate that so that we can work through you in someone to save someone else from addiction of whatever kind it may be, and that we're able to help them and their family. In your Son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
That's good. I always forget that part.
It's kind of the whole
Whole reason
mission.
why we're doing this, actually, which, we have been blessed with people reaching out and just even a little bit of information that we can give. Sometimes it just takes one little thing. And I tell you what, though, too, sometimes it takes numerous times to finally have somebody actually listen. It's like they're in the perfect, at least for me too,
Mhm.
that perfect moment. I had heard it over and over again, everything. And, I want to say that I was spiritual and I believed in God before, but I didn't really understand all the things that he could do until I was finally ready. And when I heard that same message, then it actually, it clicked. It meant something.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Before I forget, because we know that I tend to forget some things, I was talking to somebody later on today, and
You were talking to somebody later on today,
I'm
so
so bad with grammar. You know I
you spoke
am.
to somebody that you
I
haven't
spoke
spoken to yet.
earlier today. I spoke with somebody. Is that better?
Mhm.
Okay, awesome.
It
Um,
makes sense chronologically.
oh, yeah, I'm so bad with that. You know how bad I am. And now anybody can pick up on the stuff that goes on in my mind. Um, Addiction, and I had heard this before. And when I was speaking to this person, they were like, wow, I had never heard that before. So for me, addiction is kind of like picture yourself going to the beach and you put your blanket down, your things down, then you start wading into the water and you're just enjoying the water, the sun. And after a while, you look up at the beach and you realize that all of your things, your blanket, it was there, but now it's all the way over there because you drift, right? You don't pay any attention, where
Mhm.
you're going and stuff, and you drift. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, I'm so far away from where I thought I was. And that's just, how I kind of view addiction.
Yeah.
Have you heard that before?
No. I get the analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Anyway.
hate the beach, so
I know. And every time, no matter what, even if I taped my mouth shut, I'd still get sand in my mouth.
yeah.
I don't know how it happens. No.
So tonight, uh, you want to talk about finding yourself,
Yeah.
and is that at Honey Lake? Like chronologically, when did that
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah. We're at Honey Lake and we are about, this was after my birthday, which is in June. So I had been at Honey Lake for almost a month. I was there for 6 weeks. So I'd already done a whole lot of work on myself and everything. And like I said, I've got tons of thoughts and things that I wrote down, but this is something that I don't know. I don't know if it might be hard for you to hear. Um, and these are things, everybody know, you've never read any of this stuff.
No, I've never seen any of it.
So,
I saw some I saw some of your early stuff that you had already shared with me before. But other than that,
yeah.
I haven't seen any of this.
Yeah, so I've got my handy flashlight here
Yeah, your Batman flashlight.
because I can't see very well. But yeah, I'm just going to start reading some things, some thoughts that I had when I was at Honey Lake because yeah, we're constantly working on our relationship. And even though we have spent almost 4 years now, after I came back, um, we're still finding new things out about each other, and the more we talk about it and, acknowledge it, I think it just helps us to grow,
Mhm.
right? So, all throughout my writing and everything, I've got these Bible verses, and it's because they meant something to me at the time, or somebody had said, "You need to read this Bible verse." So, we're talking this is probably, for some reason, I didn't put the date on here. Oh, no, I did. June 26th, so almost 10 days after my birthday. Um, Again, about 4 weeks in to Honey Lake. I begin this with Psalm 23:3. You have any idea what that is?
Nope. I
All
don't
right.
know the Bible nearly as well as I should.
So, Psalm 23:3 is he refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. So that really
Okay.
meant something to me. And I'm going to turn on my flashlight. Hopefully I won't put it up in the camera here. Oh, honey, thank you. So here we go. The people here all this time, the staff and counselors, have never treated me with anything less than the utmost respect, caring about uncovering and digging up many memories I remembered and some shocking ones I had buried deep inside, only to be brought out with EMDR. So I can't remember what the EMDR stands for. I quite frankly didn't have enough time to look it up, but it's this thing
It,
that my
it's
counselor did where it was repressed memories.
it's a
It's a
hypnotherapy type thing,
hypnotherapy.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you, some people that were at Honey Lake, they didn't want to do this because they saw how other patients were after. Like we're talking, people would go to their room and just like veg out for the entire day, couple
Mhm.
of days, things like that, because a lot of stuff is sitting there in your mind, and you either don't want to remember it, or like in my instance, I actually buried it so deep that I didn't even remember it at all until
Mhm.
I did this. And I think that this is one of the things that really helped me. So here's where you kind of come into it. Um, I was writing this kind of to you,
Okay.
but for my own benefit. It was one of those things where, I'm not going to give it to you. It's just something that I had to write out. So you said you have bared the brunt of what my family did. I don't disagree with that. What I need to express is that it would have been great to have not lived through that family dynamic I had and outright abuse. It took me almost X amount of years to come to terms with all that happened to me. I didn't ask for or deserve what happened. You other people are so blessed to not have been raised in that. You can never fully understand what I've kept hidden and been ashamed of. I'm so happy you don't because it's not fun or was asked for. I'm going to do this. I'm learning on truly forgiving them. I know doing so doesn't free them, it frees me and my heart and soul. So without dealing with the root issues, my branches grew unsteady, poisonous, breakable, and fragile. Here's where I kind of, I've already apologized for my actions. I can't or don't need to keep apologizing. I've also already said I cannot keep living in the past. It is full of regret, heartache, pain, and disappointment. Being here has shown me with the right treatment, medication, understanding, and looking to God first, that people can change. My past does not define me, it designs me. And I am a beautiful piece of work that God has made, created to be and to live the experiences, good and bad. But He was, is always, that He was and always is with me. When you said something yesterday about my sending you Bible verses, it's kind of funny that you just said what you said about needing to learn the Bible a little bit
Mhm.
more. When you said something yesterday about my sending you Bible verses, which I sent you very many, I send what I feel and what God has shown me. You are the spiritual leader of our house as deemed by God. It saddens me that you may think of or feel my relationship with God is a farce. He guides me and is my truest friend, and the first one I need to live my life for, serving Him, doing as He asks. He provides all things for me. I felt devalued after yesterday's call. What is value? Something someone wants to give for something. I have value, and I value my marriage and my family. I've tried unsuccessfully the last 2 years on my own to show the value I have for them. The past few weeks has restored that value with the necessary tools I need to show it. The root is the same, but different fruit. Better fruit can grow from that root. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at my heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. Thoughts?
Um, so when there's a part in there where you mention the farce,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And as I recall, again, and this is gonna be a constant theme as we talk about back then. I just didn't believe anything. I just
Mhm.
thought it was another lie. I thought you were trying to get to me through, pretending to be all religious and and talking to God and reading the Bible, and I'm at a point where I don't care about any of it anymore.
Yeah, and I think that that's when I was at Honey Lake, um, remember we had talked about, me needing your attention and affection is
Hmm.
something that, and it still drives me today. Um, Not having any kind of support from you. When I
While
find
you were at Honey
While
Lake,
I was at Honey Lake.
I know, and that's the like it's honestly it's a miracle that we're here now because of what in spite of what transpired then, or when you look back at what was going on then, it's a miracle that we're here now because I it was too late for me at that point when you decided to get help. I was done.
Yeah, but back then, so there was a point where I realized that I need to and I went in and you told me you need to work on you.
Hmm.
But like around the 4 weeks is when I realized I need to stop trying to find validation through you.
Hmm.
And that has still carried over till today. Of course, I want, your approval and everything, but I realized that the one person that I really need to get validation from is from God. And everything, all the other pieces just tend to fall into place. Um, I'd like to say that maybe I can understand you were done, you know. It still would have been nice on some level, some type of support, because I think that maybe I would have gotten there sooner if you had some words of encouragement, even if like our marriage was over, even if, everything, come back, we separate, divorce, everything. It would have been nice on some at least friend level, or, you're the mother of my child level, that I'm going to try to do everything I can because I know you getting through your addiction is something that I can't just watch you continue to barrel down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally understand that. I can't tell you anything other than the fact that I didn't want to be a friend. I didn't want to do. I hated you.
Yeah.
I hated you. I wanted to take talent away from you. I never wanted to see you again.
I tell you what, I had a counselor who, because we had a long conversation on my birthday, and the counselor was a part of that. Um, and you said those words, and she spoke with me about that and made me realize that even though you had hated me, you still had some type of expression of emotion for me.
Well,
It wasn't the best
hate
emotion.
hate comes out of love.
Yeah.
The worst, and I've told you that, like, we had been in places before that, um you'll be sorry when I don't hate you anymore, or
Mm.
something to that
Something to that
effect,
effect.
right? I
Yeah.
didn't use those exact words. There's an exact phrase that I would have when I would say that, even with other, not just with us back then, but stuff that's happened in our lives recently, right?
Right.
I don't hate those people because I don't give two shits. I don't.
Yeah.
They're all dead to
Isn't it
me.
nice and freeing and everything when you
Yep.
could just like let that go?
They're all dead to me. I don't give a rat's rear end about them.
Yeah.
So
But wish them the best. Yeah, I
no,
wish
I
that's
don't.
where and it's like
I,
yeah,
Jesus was perfect. I'm not. I'm not. Like I said, that's a whole nother podcast. Not just an
right.
episode. That's a whole nother podcast in itself. But like that's the thing, right? I hated them for a while because I still loved them. Not
Mhm.
anymore. I'm
Mhm.
done.
Well, I'm glad it never got to that point. And so when we're talking about we worked on our relationship for quite a while after I got back from Honey Lake. I mean, we really did. And we would go in and there was a chair, a couple chairs and a couch. And like you were on the furthest side of the couch and we were like that across
Mhm.
from each other because the tension was so harsh.
At our first counseling appointment.
Yeah, for the
Well,
first
all
couple.
of well,
Few.
not even just a couple. There
Yeah.
was a few, quite a few. Yeah. Well, I know.
Well, I mean, there's things on your mind and the things on my mind where, we just couldn't connect. It's hard enough to talk to somebody that you love and respect. And, you know, I always would say, like in my business, I tend to call people and start a conversation with strangers, right? For real
Mhm.
estate. But I would never want to make a phone call to anybody in front of you because I just didn't know I didn't want you thinking negatively of me. And that kind of carries over to for a lot of people where it's like, I don't know if I can tell you things that I really need to get off my heart because I don't know how you're going to react to it. And so when we went to counseling, we learned and can I say his name?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he's a great counselor, and
Yeah,
I'm
his
sure he's doing counseling still.
his
So,
name is Kim. Um, he gave us like homework and things to do. And I remember one of the first things was, pray for your spouse.
mhm.
Um, thank you, God, for giving me the opportunity to love Brett
Yeah,
and the
and
responsibility
the
to take care of him.
responsibility to care for her or him. Yeah,
Yeah. And that was really weird. And we started praying together. It was
it
just
was
so awkward.
so. It's one of those things where they're shrinking your mind, and you don't. I'm kidding, obviously, with that, but uh, these therapies, these tactics, they have a reason and they serve a purpose. It felt so awkward and unnatural in the
Forced.
beginning that, well, I would like say it through my teeth,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's how forced it was. And then it became like I want to wrap my arms around you while I'm praying that.
Yeah. And,
Because and I think that's the tactic, right? So we're Keller Williams agents. We make that very clear. We love our Keller Williams family. We love the culture. KW Clarity, we've already talked about in a previous episode. I imagine we'll have an episode dedicated to KW Clarity, which is an amazing community within Keller Williams for people who are sober curious, uh, battling addiction, trying to stay
Or
sober,
a
whatever
family
that is,
member
or
or
family
friends.
members.
Just
Yep.
yep.
So,
Excuse me.
I totally lost my train of thought. I got into all
Well,
that and
talking about forced prayer and stuff, it was just really weird for us in the beginning to I mean, he
yeah.
would pray and I would pray, but we would never pray together. And that was one thing that I don't we probably wouldn't have started that, or at least started that as soon as we did, if it
Mhm.
wasn't for the fact that we went to counseling. And when we would pray that prayer and do some of these activities, we were not like happy go lucky about it.
Let me cut you off because my thought came
Go
back.
for it.
So what you focus on expands, right?
Right,
It's a
right.
bold law within Keller Williams. It's something you hear a gazillion times, but it's absolutely 100% true. What you focus on expands. And saying that through my teeth, gritting my teeth, saying it because I didn't want to say it. I didn't even want to look at you. And then it just the teeth are clenched a little bit less tight and less tight. And then it's willingly saying it. And then it's comfortably saying it. And then it's wanting to say it.
Yeah, and this is something that my memory is not all that great. I don't think I've ever heard you say that before.
Mm-mm.
And it's
Never
like,
really even thought about it.
yeah,
Never thought about that process.
and that just goes back to the point of, you don't really express everything that's on your heart that you really should express to the person that is your partner.
Hmm.
And we just tend to not do it because it makes us uncomfortable, or the moment passes. That's one thing. It's like I need to work through things to completely get through everything and feel fine on the other end.
Hmm.
And most people, and it, which is complete opposite from what I did before. We would put a band-aid on it. We wouldn't talk about it and everything. And I've learned to let certain small things go, you know,
Hmm.
but the big stuff, hun- after some cooling time, we need to really talk about what's going on. And for the most part with us, you know, we work through that, and you know, it's gotten a whole lot better. Like I remember not wanting to ever say I'm sorry, or you not ever saying sorry. And they're coming a little bit more along the way. But what's great about that too is we don't have a whole lot of things that we're sorry for.
No, we don't fight nearly as much.
No.
The judgment's not as clouded as it used to be. Dumb things aren't happening because of alcohol.
Yeah.
The thing that was huge though, and I don't know where this came from with you. I don't know if it was in your past or if it was the alcohol that caused it to happen. But when we would get in a fight and I needed to retreat, you would just come at me and come at me and come at me and then be surprised by the explosion that you got. Because
Yeah.
I try to keep it under control and I need time to go into my corner and process.
Well,
And you would just come at me like a rabid dog and it would drive me crazy. And Kim helped us through that. I mean, that was probably one of the biggest things. And now, like you just said, we'll take a little bit of a breather, but we're talking about like 5-10 minutes tops for it to cool off. And then either you approach me or I approach you and like, let's get through this.
it's because it's like I felt like I couldn't breathe until everything was better. Because again, that constant validation from you, it's like it bothered me so much that we weren't on good terms, that I had to just like keep on going at it
But
I know now, because I actually, I need time for myself with the life that we lead and everything. I really enjoy time to myself, work through things. Silence really is golden. Um, but that Amanda back then, I needed to just try to fix it then and there when the
um,
wound really just needs some
didn't seem
some
like
air to breathe.
didn't seem like any fixing going on.
There wasn't. But I didn't know how to work through all that stuff. I didn't understand why I was acting the way I was acting, and I didn't know how to get through either.
Mhm.
I didn't understand it. I didn't know how to get through it. And that's where counseling really, really helped. And you have to, oh gosh, we hear all these things all the time about, you can't be good for somebody else until you're good for yourself. I mean, we hear it all the time, but it's
Yeah.
so true. I mean, I had to figure out what was going on with me before I could really give myself the best way I could for somebody else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the counseling was huge. If my best advice to any couple out there that if one of you's thinking about counseling and the other one's dragging your feet, or first of all, there's no shame in getting counseling, period. There
No,
is no shame whatsoever. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean that you're not smart enough to work through your problems. In fact, it's the other way around. It's that you're smart enough to seek knowledge that you don't currently possess,
that's a great way of putting it.
right? I mean, I didn't mean right. That's a great way. I mean, I wasn't, patting myself on the
Oh,
back.
I was patting you on the back.
What I'm saying is that if you're not a PhD, or whatever those degrees are, right? If you're not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or whatever the therapist has as a degree, if you don't have that, then be smart enough to realize that somebody knows more about those things than you do, and they can help you through what you're going through.
Well, but
'Cause-
even with those doctors and every single counselor that I had a counselor of their own
Mhm,
because you sometimes just need another person's perspective and another person in agreement or disagreement or give you another way to understand and work through what you're going through.
yeah.
I think, like I said last episode, I think everybody could really benefit from having a counselor, so a third party person that doesn't really know
Mhm,
me or you or all the ins and the outs. And one other thing is, like you were saying, if you want to go to counseling and the other person doesn't, go. You don't have to wait.
yeah.
Now
Just go.
it's great if the other person would be on the
Yeah.
same, but we weren't even there.
No.
Like you didn't go
And
for a
and
while.
I wasn't opposed to going to counseling. I was opposed to going with you.
Yeah.
And again, I know in the beginning I'm like, no, I'm not going at all. But that was because I didn't know that I wanted to fix anything. And things, I don't know what it was. I don't even know why I decided, because I remember being like, no, you go to counseling if you want to go to counseling. I'm not going. I didn't want to go with you. And I didn't feel like I needed to go myself because at the time I didn't want to fix anything.
But that's the thing, it's like you might not wanted to have fixed anything with us, but
Hmm.
you still had to fix the emotions or get through the emotions that you were having on the level that you know, just like you told me I needed to fix myself, you needed to
Hmm.
fix what you were going through, whether or not it actually brought us together. And when we finally did go to counseling together,
Hmm.
I had no idea if it was going to work, but I knew that with all the counseling that I had at Honey Lake, I knew working through the emotions that you had was something that was going to benefit you, whether or not I was in your life.
Yeah. Well, and in the beginning of the counseling together, it was not good because it was constantly wanting the counselor to side with one or the other.
Yeah, it was like a boxing
It was
match.
ridiculous, honestly. But he was such an amazing. I mean, he's an amazing man, human being. Anyway, he's just phenomenal. And the counselor had everything to do with it. Different counselor probably doesn't work.
Oh gosh,
We
no.
had another counselor in our life years before for a different family issue, and I wanted to wring that guy's throat. He was the dumbest counselor I've ever seen. He was getting snowed by an adolescent, and I just couldn't believe how stupid the guy was.
And so that's bring up a really excuse me, good point. Don't stop at just one. It's just like if you have cancer or some kind of medical issue or whatever, you're probably going to get a second opinion, second, third, whatever. Don't let it's kind of like going to church too. If you have a bad
Mhm.
experience when going into one church, don't let that halt what you're trying to overcome in the first place. Don't let that be your end all be all. Sometimes and I actually went to a couple different counselors before Honey Lake that couldn't get me to where I needed to be, right?
Yeah.
It's it's that moment of having the right person at the right time, the right mindset or situation or whatever. So, yeah, if you're currently going to a counselor and it's not working, just try somebody else.
Yeah,
Don't just stop there.
don't like stop going because you think everybody's the same way because they're not.
They're
I mean,
not.
people are different. Everybody's a different person, different personality. Some people have 20 personalities like Amanda. Just kidding. Um, but
I would tend to agree.
everybody's different. So if you're not happy with the counselor that you currently have, s- don't stop seeking the help that you know or knew at some point that you needed. Find somebody else who delivers the message in a way that you're comfortable with.
Here, here.
Yeah.
Different strokes for different folks.
Because I don't we were counseled by two people. We mentioned both of them. So Pastor Mike at church was amazing. He started, right, but he counsels as a pastor. It wasn't an actual because I believe Kim's a psychologist.
Yes.
Yes, because
Yes.
psychiatrists
It's different
prescribe, right?
because
And that
able
was
to
the other
prescribe.
great thing too, is we weren't getting like, you know, pilled up by somebody who just wanted to write scripts. Like this was all mind over matter and working on each person and our thoughts and very strategic in the process of how we process things and how we think about the other person, intentionality in our actions and our thoughts.
Mhm.
uh it had nothing to do with, you know, any kind of prescriptions or anything.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I actually was gonna start tonight on this. This was June the 10th, so prior to my birthday. Today was a good and hard day, starting typical. I finally realized that I have no joy. Yeah, I had no joy. Talked to a counselor about dopamine, but I don't really want another pill or controlled joy or medicated joy.
Hmm.
I was I
You were on
was
a lot of drugs when you can't, I mean, and for a while, right? Which is great
yeah.
because
I mean,
they
not a
cert
lot.
they
I had like 4 different ones
well, when you were on zero before,
when I was on 0 before. Yeah,
you
and
know.
I didn't want to. I thought that and this was like long conversations that I had with quite a few, psychiatrists at Honey Lake. I didn't want to take a pill because I didn't want to get addicted because
Mhm.
I was there for being addicted. I was so worried about that, and it took a while, to have a couple of other ones introduced, which I've weaned myself off of all but
Yeah,
one.
I'm proud of
Not
you.
wean yeah, I've
No,
weaned
you
off.
did though.
Yeah,
You decided that you weren't going to take them anymore.
right.
And so you weaned yourself off of them, whether it was minimizing the dosage or
With
going
medical
longer.
help. I didn't
Yeah,
do it
yeah,
by
yeah, yeah.
myself.
No, no, no. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would definitely like don't do that on your own because all these medications have side effects and they affect other people, you know, different people differently. And you were scared to wean yourself off
I
because
was.
two or three of those were mood enhancers,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, I was afraid that I
And
was
your
gonna
mood was
lose.
I was terrified because her mood was amazing on those
Wait,
things.
what about now?
It's pretty good.
Oh, come on.
No, it's very good. It's very good.
Forget the normal highs and lows of like what a woman goes through. In general, I think that my mood is pretty good.
It is. It is.
Yours too.
Thank you. As long as I'm not driving.
Yeah, this is not driving. Um, but yeah, it's so I was on 4 different types of medication for I guess I started weaning myself off of them. It was about 3 years. No, about 2.5. 2.5 years after I came back from Honey Lake. And, the doctors never kind of pressured me or whatever. It was really my decision, which I I really enjoyed being able to make that decision. Again, that's when you're talking to a doctor or somebody else that they're going to help you work through it. Um, but that's one great thing about Honey Lake too is they actually had a follow-up care already planned with my first visit um, scheduled prior to me even leaving.
Mhm.
So, and they have an alumni Facebook page, and you can get daily messages, meditations, and things like that, which really helped me out. Um, so, anyway, you have anything else, or I was going to get back into a
Yeah.
couple of things?
No, because you're still going through your notes of your process of finding yourself, right?
Yeah. Um, So this is from June the 16th. I realized that I'm not going to like go I thought that when we started talking about doing this podcast, I kind of thought that maybe I was just going to go from day 1 and just go, and it doesn't work that way.
No.
So, I'm going to bounce back and forth from
It's like
different.
a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. So this is actually the day before my birthday. It was June the 16th. Um Always look for the good in every situation. There's always a solution. It may not be exactly what you've hoped for, imagined, or needed to happen, but compromise and calm will get you through whatever you face. It's not just me slash you that are working on or towards something, and our own thoughts and needs are typically our go to response. Talk together, talk to Him, meaning God. Take deep breaths and listen to each other. This is about you and me, and listening to God. Then compromise, internalize, and realize that the best way is not always, most often not your way. I had to that was one thing too. It's like everything had to be my way. I thought
No, you don't say.
but then I realized when I realized that for myself, I also realized that for you. The best way is not always your way. And that's something that I've talked to you about before too. It's like a good scenario, math problems. There's a couple different ways to work through a math problem that we've completely found. At least found out more so recently than not because of our son. Um, One way is not necessarily better than the other. If you can get to that end point, people are going to do things differently. And I
Mhm.
realized that I can't expect somebody else to do the things the same way as I would. And I have to feel comfortable with that,
Mhm.
because I would put too much energy and time into, well, why are you doing it your way? Dah, dah, dah. You know, I had to start focusing more on myself and then giving the grace. That's one thing too. I learned how to give grace. I still do that every single day, not just with you, with a
Mm.
lot of other people.
Mm.
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
It's actually even hard to hear. Like when somebody else says that to me, if you could just give me a little bit of grace, it reminds me that, oh, maybe I'm approaching something in a way that I could do something
So I
a
mean,
little different.
sometimes. But if that person's saying that is because they're freaking stupid and they constantly do the same crap over and over
We're not
again,
talking. So you're looking at it as a negative thing. It's not always that.
optimist, realist.
It's so true. It's so true. I don't look at people in that manner any like really anymore. Um, I I tend to give a lot of grace. It takes a lot to really annoy and tick me off. You know that.
Yes, dear.
It really does. It's kind of like, me with my emotions and crying and stuff. It takes a lot for me to actually just, release that. What's going on?
I was kidding. I'm like, oh,
Oh.
really? Let me pinch you and see how fast it takes you to cry. Um, yeah, grace is a big one. Um, Personal life, business life. driving. Yeah. I I used to be a people person, and then people ruined it.
Oh, golly gee, golly gee. So here's one more. This is from the day after my birthday, and if you remember my birthday, that was a pretty tough day. I mean,
I
well, it
don't.
was for me.
I don't remember.
We had a huge argument, huge argument. So, day after my birthday was high and very low, which prompted me to think about what I really need out of these last 2 weeks at Honey Lake, which is distance from Brett. I am thankful for having the calm to apologize if I get heated, which he responded, "To your credit, you actually weren't." I don't remember. So, in the middle of the argument and stuff, I actually you say you don't remember, but I didn't let myself get too "Bleh." I actually was very calm in that argument that we had on the telephone, where you actually said, y you actually were really calm. Um, and I said, after I said, "I don't deserve to be talked to how I was," there you know, all of that emotion and stuff that you had, and we would talk to each other maybe 5, 6 days out of the week. We would always, he would call me or I would call him, and one thing that I wanted to do at 10 o'clock every night was have a nightly prayer with each other,
Mhm.
and it didn't happen every single night, for whatever reason. So we were talking, again, surface level. We weren't really diving into anything while I was there until my birthday. And, that's when the floodgates, everything just kinda came out. And, um, I had said, obviously, um, you know, "I don't deserve to be talked to the way that you're talking to me right now." And I said it in a really calm manner, and then the day after, which is this day, you had mentioned to me, you actually approached that conversation that we had in a very calm manner,
Mhm.
which kinda surprised you because I didn't do that before. It's like when I came back and I bought the vacuum. Of course, you're the elephant. You're supposed to remember all this stuff. So, I was back from Honey Lake, and I went and I bought a vacuum because ours was broken, didn't work, whatever, and that's something that I wouldn't have normally done. And I remember you saying, I don't know the exact words, but you were, like, shocked, and you made a comment about the fact that I went and bought a vacuum
Mhm.
instead of waiting for you to do it. I
Mhm.
was taking, the reins of doing, you know, something that needed to be done for the household. Anyway, um, so I'm writing about the conversation that we had on my birthday, and I poured my heart out. He misses aspects of me, but in general, happy I'm not around. Yes, it's in God's hands, but that doesn't mean we can't try too. I'm trying so hard. That was a release I needed for me. And I said that to you. And I'm happy I said it, and then it looks like you said it too. I'm happy he said it. I couldn't breathe because that was like the first sign of, maybe there's a chance. So you're saying there's a chance.
Mhm.
Um,
This is June
this is
18th of
June
20.
18th of 20. Yeah. Today, this morning, I know you think I haven't earned anything, but I deserve it and I'm deserving.
Yeah, the reason I was asking for the time is because my all-in date is still 8 months away.
Okay. So we talked about your all out date or your X
Mhm.
date. That was May
14th.
14th. You had an all in date?
Mhm.
When was that?
2/21. No, 222 of 21. Is that what it was? Yeah, I
222 of
think it was
21?
222 of 21. Yep.
Tell me about that.
Well,
I'm gonna look back on, like, my
what was it?
texts and emails and stuff like that because I wanna know what happened that day.
This is something that we alluded to that we'd get into, and I mean, maybe in the next 15 minutes we can do it, but when you, I guess we'll do the Quentin Tarantino movie thing and bounce back and forth
Yeah.
between time periods. But when you got back, life was horrible because we weren't good, and you introduced other issues into the house by trying to care for people that, quite frankly, I didn't feel like that needed to happen right now.
Yeah,
Not
looking
our
back.
problem,
Yeah, looking back, I agree with you.
right?
Yeah.
So that was a huge one for me. It's where the PTSD comes from. The Christmas of 20 was the worst Christmas I've ever had in my entire life.
I would agree.
Absolutely the worst Christmas I've ever had in my entire life.
Yep.
And it's because I was an outsider in my own home.
Well, remember for everybody else's in Facebook land and stuff, this was 6 months, around 6 months after I came back from Honey Lake, and we're talking, everything was still really bad, still pointing the finger, blame, I now when I came back from Honey Lake, I don't want people to think that I was how I am now. This has been a process,
Mhm.
like a long process, and of course, Honey Lake changed my life. It just that was the mustard seed to start growing into something better. I knew what I had to do, but I still had a lot of, anger and things. The only thing that was missing out of the equation was the alcohol. I still had other stuff going on. And so I was still angry at you and, well, F you. And I'm going to do whatever I want because I need to take care of myself. I mean, where I'm writing this stuff right here, like in June and when I was at Honey Lake, you know, all of these things are still valid, but I was only wanting to take care of me and then you or anybody else.
No, not me or anybody else.
Well, you.
Pretty much just me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Because that was the problem with those months leading up to Christmas was it was just F me,
You know what?
and I'm over, I'm living next door because I was a total stranger in my house.
And I tell you what, I didn't realize it until this moment. I was not supporting you on purpose because of you not supporting me at Honey Lake.
No, you're spiteful?
Was
It was. It
spiteful,
was.
but no, I just realized that. I didn't get anything from you, so why would I give anything for and to you after the
So
fact?
from my perspective, and this is probably why it's so hard and probably why Kim said that it's a PTSD kind of thing, is you came back. There's part of me trying to make it work. At the time, probably more for our son than anything else, because I
Yeah.
didn't want him to be a product of a broken home. And I know that's the only reason I'm trying to make it work at that point. And then it's you and the girls against me, and that's flashbacks to so many years and so many times before, and
And it's
that has a
funny.
whole different set of hurt and issues.
So here's where perception, I could say the same thing, he you didn't have kids or was married before or anything like that. There's so many times where I could say in my mind the same thing about you, where it was just you and what you wanted to do, and it wasn't just me and the girls, and, you know, because of other, issues when we were dating and stuff. But it's true. I realized that, a man leaves his mother and father, right?
Mhm.
It's in the Bible, and, comes together with his wife. And I was still trying to put other people ahead of you. It was easy back then because of our past. It was easy.
Mhm.
And I had to realize that, you know, I had to fight for us whether or not other people understood it. People are going to have their own thoughts, feelings, whatever. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? I mean, I think that's why a lot of relationships break up because a third party or fourth party, whatever, they come in and they start giving, fuel to the fire and everything. When the only people that should be involved in your marriage is God and the other spouse.
Well, especially too when you consider the source, and there was absolutely no creditable experience on either one of their parts.
Right. So, we can get into a little bit more of that if you want to, but I'm kind of curious to know a little bit more about now after all that stuff, your all in date. You said 222 of 21?
222, 21. Yeah.
I gotta look that up. Okay, so what happened?
I knew you were gonna ask me, and I'm sitting here thinking like the numbers, the date is in my head. I think, well, no, I think I know. It was the day that you decided what you just said. You got stern with one of those individuals and said that this is the way it's going to be. This is our life. This is our home. You have your own, or whatever it was.
Yeah,
But and I think that's why, because then I knew that you were fighting for us.
that was 3 years ago.
Yep.
So that's how so I went in May, 7.
And we've slowly and steadily been working harder and together and gotten stronger since then. But yeah, as I was trying to think, I'm like, why was it that day? And then because that was the day, like I said, that you put your foot down and said, "This is my family. This is what I not that I don't love you,
Mhm.
but this is my immediate
Mhm.
family now."
Yeah.
Right? You're an adult.
Well, I was trying to make up for a lot of things that I didn't do for all the years.
So that when you said before that you were putting other people before me, that's exactly where my head went. I didn't see it so much as you putting other people before me for any other reason than you were constantly trying to make up for things you can't make up for.
Yeah, that's one thing about, well, one of the first things that I talked about here tonight was I'm or actually I don't know if I did. Yeah, I didn't. I have a letter in here to my mother.
Mm,
Um and I don't even know if there's going to be enough strength for me to ever read that
mm.
out.
Well, that'll
I
be up to you.
I don't know. Um but one of the things that I actually read it today trying to figure out, what I wanted to talk about.
Mhm.
Um I'm learning on how to forgive you. And it's hard to forgive yourself. And I've had conversations with my girls a lot of times. And I still have there's so many things I wish I could have done differently. So many
I
things.
think you're harder on yourself.
I
Like, I
know.
know enough about your past, right? But I think you're harder on yourself, and you think things are worse than they actually were, because there was another person that was a lot worse because of deliberate manipulation. And it's almost like you're trying to
Bearing
make
the
up.
brunt of
It's almost like you're trying
another
to make
person's
up for
too.
what that person did too, and
Yeah.
that was out of your control, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that person made you look And I think that adult eyes have seen that those things aren't true,
Yeah.
but the adolescent eyes believed whatever they were told.
So we're talking
And
a product of divorce. I mean, it doesn't really take that much for people to put the pieces together.
right.
Um,
But
but it's
it's
true.
okay if it's vague, right? I
Yeah,
mean, we're
yeah.
not talking.
We're not
I don't
saying
want to mention specifics and stuff.
yeah,
So,
but I was, just and it, it's hard for, or at least it was hard for me to be like, I can't try to make up for anything anymore. Every now and again, does it still hit me? Do I still send a message to my girls about, whatever? Yeah, absolutely. But, I keep on trying to remember, and this is something that I learned from Honey Lake. I try not to worry too much about the past because it's filled with heartache and regret and hurt. I try not to think too much about the future because it's full of fear and anxiety and a big question mark. So I try to live in the present and in his presence
mhm,
because that's really the only thing that matters at this moment.
mhm,
Because when you do go behind and you do go forward, I mean, that's where the stress comes from. And so I try to just be as happy as I can in the moment that I have. I was talking to uh, one of the kids, not my kids, but a kid earlier today about because I had this out and I'm looking through it. And they're like, "What is that?" And I said, "These are some of my thoughts and stuff from, back in the day." I mean, "Don't you have a diary or whatever?"
mhm,
And like, if there's any piece of advice that I could give anybody out there right now, start writing down your feelings.
mhm,
Because even though this is something from the past, when I'm looking at it in the present here, it just gives me more therapy and more, what's the word I'm looking for? Healing.
yeah. I heard something the other day, yesterday. So I went to the office yesterday for a training, and even though that was business related, there's so much, and a lot of it has to do because of a lot of it has to do because of no, a lot of it has to do with the fact that Keller Williams culture is so much a part of that company. It's so much a part of us. And so there's lessons that you learn in business that are actually life lessons too.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that was talked about, and this is a wealth building class, but one of the things that was said was picture yourself or be with the people who remind you of your future and not the people who remind you of your past.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because as I've mentioned in previous episodes, I'm still a little hurt and torn with somebody who was very close to me back then and saw one side of a situation and jumped to conclusions. And then that pissed me off to the point that I never wanted to see him again. But he reminds me of my past. Doesn't remind me of my future. Never did.
Yeah, I can understand that because y even I still kinda wondered up until this very moment if there's any kind of reconciliation, but that is just a perfect statement.
S-
Y You expect and want something better for you in your
mm,
future, and actually, like, the first time you and I broke up, because we broke up a lot back in the day, you had said so, and I have it written down somewhere where you're like, "Nothing came good of trying to redo something that happened in the past," or whatever.
mm.
Obviously, in our
Thank God I didn't listen
situation,
to that
it
advice.
worked out, but I can understand that and appreciate that.
Well, but that person's not like the people I talked about in recent times because I do care about him. He's not dead to me. I do care about him. I don't hate him by any means. I never did hate him. I was hurt because he believed you and not me.
Yeah.
Um, but he's from what I can see, he's gone on to have a successful life too. Their marriage got
Mhm.
better. They have
Mhm.
beautiful children. So
Yeah, so
it's
that's like
great.
you never really know. Um So yeah, we're about at that hour mark. Um, I wanted to make sure that I tell everybody this, and I don't know if you maybe want to end on it or not. Um, but I hope that us uncovering our past for you all to see and for us to see certain aspects that we haven't really dove into is, number one, that we're all people. We all share the same kind of struggles. We're not doing this because we want to like say, "Oh, we have a perfect life." Da, da, da. Da." You know, it's it's work. It's always work, and you uncover so many things by sharing your feelings. And ultimately, this was so I could share what I went through during my addiction from my point of view, and Brett with his point of view, because it was really a two-sided coin. I had no idea what was going on with him. And we're going to uncover a lot of this stuff moving forward, things that we had never talked about. um but if there's anybody out there that is struggling with this, or just emotions in general, or like right on the verge of you know doing something drastic, there's never a time. Let me try to rewind that for a second. You're never too far gone.
Mm-mm.
And, you know, obviously
We're
we were
we're
right
we're a
there.
testament we're a testament to that. Like, I mean, in so many different times, right? Not even what you've learned about our journey as a married couple, but before that, how many times we broke up, got back together, broke up, got back together.
God had a
It was
plan.
yeah.
And I didn't understand it. And I actually live each day to try to understand it a little bit more. I just know
Well,
that we're here. He's
mhm,
blessed this union.
yeah. Well, and when I had said that to you before, it's because I had previous relationships where it just, on off, and then finally I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm done with you. Period. Right? Sometimes it was done with me. And that's not that's
No,
not
you're
that's not
perfect.
easy.
Everybody that you were
But
ever with, they're the ones that had the problem, honey.
no,
It
that's
was
not
never you.
that's not true. But we both know of one in particular where it's like,
Oh
that's
gosh, that's
that's
like a whole nother
all done.
podcast too.
Yeah. So yeah. Uh, don't get I'm not saying stay in we're not saying stay in an unhealthy relationship. That's not it. Were we unhealthy? Yes, for a very, very long time. Uh in our dating life. It was very unhealthy. But we
Yeah.
also neither one of us were I had lost my faith, right? We
Yeah,
weren't
yeah,
we
we
weren't
were
connected to church, we
not
weren't
at all.
connected to God.
Mm-mm.
Had we been, and we plan to raise our son differently and have him active in youth group and things like that. I never experienced that as a kid. So, what we've seen from the kids in our church, they grow up and they have a different life and they don't have those toxic relationships. Not that they don't, not that not any of them have them, but
Yeah,
it's less common.
the generational curse. You can break it just
Yeah.
because your dad or grandpa or brother or whatever. You can break it. Just
Yeah. You can always break the cycle. My
yeah,
dad, my dad's dad was not from my dad's stories as when he was a kid, he was not he wasn't like affectionate,
mhm,
right?
yeah. A lot of
Um,
a lot of that generation.
yeah. Well, and it was a rough life. I mean, they grew up on a farm and all that stuff in middle of nowhere in the hell, Indiana, and now there's a casino there, so it's big time. But it's not just corn anymore. There's casinos. Um,
Casinos and corn.
right. But my dad's always been loving and affectionate. It's always been that
Yes.
way,
Yeah,
right? And I
absolutely.
think it just gets more and more. I'm probably more so than my dad was.
And
And
then
our son
is
is the sweetest kid in the
definitely,
world.
definitely.
Yeah. So you can break the cycle. Even if it's not something that, if it's not a cycle that needs to be broken, but you need help in one way or another, please reach out to us. You can you can direct message us through Facebook
Yep.
so that you can keep it confidential, and we will help in any way that we can. Disclaimer: neither one of us are professionals in any way. Amanda
Not
is
yet.
working
I'm
towards a
working on it.
degree,
I'm working on it. And
but
there's no judgment. There's no
no,
judgment, no shame, no anything like that.
we're
I
the
know that
last two
because
people to judge anybody.
I because I came from it.
Mhm.
And that's one of the main reasons why I didn't get help for a long time is because I was afraid of being judged. So absolutely no judgment. Want nothing but the best for you and the people around you.
Yep.
Um so yeah. Uh I actually have real quick because
Yeah.
we always tend to go over our hour, but I want to make sure that I say these because these two verses actually played into what I was talking about before. And if you ever want to look these up for yourself, please just look into them a little bit more. James 1:5-6. If
We'll put these in the comments too so that you know
Yeah,
where to reference them in the
yeah.
Bible.
If you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, what giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. So in the New International Version, which is easier, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind.
So, you know what that makes me think of right away with what we were talking about too is the person that gets all this advice and ignores it all the time, right? They get great advice. There's also a story too that I love, that this guy, and I'll butcher this, but I'll get the gist of it, I think, where this guy finally meets God and says, God, why didn't you send me a sign? You mean when I sent this and you ignored it? And when I sent that and you ignored it? And when I sent this and you ignored it? Right?
That's the thing that I was talking about last episode where you open your eyes, you
Yeah.
really do, and then you start to see these signs everywhere. And I
Mhm.
gotta say, I'm so glad I looked up the New International Version of that because that kinda tied right into the beginning of this when we were talking about the blanket and the sea and the beach.
Mhm.
Really?
The
Yeah.
NIV, I'm so glad because our church uses the NIV.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that we do because it's the most layman's interpretation of the Bible that I've read.
It's
What
we're
was the
not
first
St.
one?
James is like, I
King
can't
King
even
James.
King James, there's
Yeah,
no way that I could even get through
yeah.
that. Yeah,
So,
New International Version.
yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, please get help. Reach out to us if you feel comfortable because we're connecting in some way. I hope, and we'll help to get you that help that you need. Because we both know that it can be very difficult when you feel like you're in this all alone, and you are not.
You are not
And with that,
alone.
I'll grab a tissue and see you in the next episode.
Thanks for
Bye
watching,
bye.
everybody.